Yo, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Zach Lesage here. Today we're going to be covering over the best cards from Shrouded Fable. Whether you're trying to learn more about this set, see what's good for Worlds, or you want to figure out which cards you're going to pick up from your local game store or from our sponsors Kayfabe, PTCGL store, or anything else that we have, this is the video for you. I'm going to be covering over the best cards from the sets and sharing the reasons why. That being said, let's jump into this video. There's a lot of ground to cover, and I'm really excited to look at this new set of Pokemon. So jumping into the set, there's a lot of ground to cover. I mean, it is a miniature set for us in North America, elsewhere outside of Asia. But there's still a decent bit of cards here that I think are worthwhile, and I'm going to kind of go over them. It should be assumed that pick up any of the little forms or other evolutions for some of these cards. I have compiled a list that I will share at some point in this video as well. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, totally do that. Also in my new Discord server, if you haven't got a chance to do that, check it on my Twitter, hit me up. But we're going to start off with Dartrix. Dartrix is the new card for United Wing. And United Wings is quite a cool archetype because it's going to allow us to get more damage out there. Because we have the Dartrix, we have the Murkrow, we have the Flamigo, and I think there's a Wattrel, which allows us to now do 320 damage. Things. This one costs a colorless, and it adds an additional type, giving us Grass, Lightning, and Darkness. Nothing's weak, unfortunately. But I think Dartrix could actually breathe some life into this new deck, giving us some opportunities to either just play the Dartrix, or maybe you want to play the Rowlet as well, maybe some kind of combination. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but seen cards like this in Night March in previous formats, and they actually do okay. It's one of those things where we might have enough damage output where we could actually beat a strong single prize card deck, one energy. There's a lot of good things going there for it. Moving on, we're gonna have Tapu Bulu. Now, Tapu Bulu might not seem like much at first, but its Wood Hammer attack does 220 damage, which is enough for any grass type deck or maybe a Lost Zone box deck to A, have a grass type card that we can accelerate energies to, or B, have that 220 for a single prize card Pokemon or a 2 prize card Pokemon that has 220 or less. We can also scale this with other damage modifiers. We can also knock out something that's weak to grass. So Tapu Bulu seems like it does a lot of damage right now for a fair amount of energy. It's a card that I'd probably end up picking up one. I don't think Tapu Bulu is going to be the star of its own deck, but with some of the other translations and early leaks that we've seen of our next set after this, because we're looking a couple of months in advance, there does seem to be some decent grass type support. So Tapu Bulu might have an opportunity. Another single prize card Pokemon that might see some success is going to be Iron Moth. We're looking at it for its Wild Rejector attack. 120 damage during your opponent's next turn. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon. Well, if ancient Pokemon are worthwhile or continue success, like the ancient box that I played at NES, it is one of those things where I think Iron Moth does have an opportunity to success, especially in a deck that it can accelerate energy fire type Pokemon. I think Kingdra EX is a card that might see. Now, Kingdra EX is Kingdra's like arguably one of my favorite Pokemon. I'm not sure if you can see, but I have a Kingdra tribal tattoo. Probably can't see the angle, but Kingdra is the homie. It's been the homie since 2005. Where does that leave me with it? Well, putting a 3 water Pokemon from your discard pile on your bench could be kind of cool. I'm not sure which water Pokemon I'd put down on my bench. Maybe a Baxcalibur, maybe a Serena EX, maybe a Vanillix. There's some opportunities there. So I think it's a card that like I'm probably gonna end up picking up, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be earth-shattering, amazing, right cards. I do want to mention Rev of Room EX. Now Rev of Room has its 3 energy attack, speed break, 250 damage. Discard this Pokemon and all cards attached to it. I think it's interesting in a way where like we can maybe do some chip damage with accelerating flash, going for 140 damage. Moving it from the bench to the active, cool. Discarding your Pokemon is kind of weird in a way where like we have to build up another Pokemon. But if we tank a hit and we go like take a hit, break, our opponent's effectively not drawing prize cards. Not sure if there's something there. I'm leaning towards no, but I could be wrong. I think like when it comes to these early sets, like right now we are like early June, mid-June when I'm recording this. The set's coming out in like a month, and that's with zero like active play testing. That's zero results from Japan as far as I can tell. So have to go. Now, when I'm saying zero results from Japan, there are some cards that have seen some light success Japan so far. Right now, they're just hosting gym battle tournaments. Dusklops and Dust Noir are really those cards with their Curse Bomb abilities. So it says, once during your turn, you may put 5 damage counters for Dusklops or 13 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon with Dust Noir. And it's in one of them. If you place any damage counters in this way, this Pokemon's knocked out. So getting knocked out kind of sucks, but it's also kind of cool when it comes to cards like Roxanne, when it comes to cards such as Iono. We have ways to pair things with this to see a lot of success. We have ways to maybe increase our damage with Charizard EX and draw a prize card. So in a way where we've offset our prize cards from our opponents, we might have an opportunity to go knock out one of our opponent's single prize cards Pokemon with a Dust Noir, draw a prize card, power up our Charizard to another level that our opponent wasn't expecting. Now we get the knockout with Charizard on their prize. They're effectively drawing 3 prize cards in a turn. That's a comeback mechanic and a half of every one. Maybe if you don't even get all the way there, we have access to Iono or Roxanne or some other combos that I might not even be thinking of, or that I'll think about after I finish recording. Cresselia is another card that I think from that could be kind of okay. Doing Psychic, 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 Crescent Purge 80+. May flip up one of your prize cards face up. If you do, this attack does 80 damage. Maybe for a single prize card Pokemon in a Gardevoir deck, since accelerate energies, being able to do 160 might be worthwhile, on top of getting the benefit of seeing was. Kind of shifting over some of the rest of this, not a lot there. Blood Moon Ursaluna is a card that's caught my eye. Its ability allows you to play it down from your hand, bench, you catch up to basic fighting energy Pokemon. I was thinking about some ways that maybe we could abuse this with Thornton, maybe we could abuse this with something else. Could be interesting. And then there's also, it does 100 for fighting colorless. This attack does 30 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent. So it's not a bad attacker. It's interesting. Fighting doesn't have a lot of support, so maybe that's where it's at. I think it's a card that I want to have in my collection, and then I'll be happy in 2. It sounds like pretty bad otherwise, right? Like, that's kind of where I'm like, the makings of a good card are there. The metagame's not necessarily super receptive to it right now. That could change. I'll have to think about it a little bit more, but it seems kind of good right now. We already covered Iron Moth, so it makes sense for us to cover Slitherwing. 20 damage plus 120 if your opponent has a future play for fighting colorless. In any kind of ancient deck, this could be an answer to Iron Hand X, or any kind of maybe a Miraidon EX kind of deck. I don't hate it, and I think it's cards like this where I'm like, is it the best card of all time? Does it change the meta to another level? Is it the type of card that I could splash into an Ancient Fox deck or a Raging Bull deck to change something that I want to have control over? Yeah, and that's really where I like it. It could give us some decent options. Absol is probably what's next. So its Badfall does 20 damage plus 50 more damage if you have at least 3 Darkness energy to play. I think this is a card that you might want to have a couple copies of in a Darkness deck if you need a single prize card attacker. 70 damage is not a lot of damage. If you have a lot of ways to accelerate energies to your Pokemon in play, Absol just might be a really that kind of another Darkness type Pokemon. And I mean, Shrouded Fable is basically a Darkness set. I do kind of throw that out there. Is Yveltal. Its Gnawing Winds attack does 2 damage counters to your opponent's Pokemon that already has any counters on it. That really gives us a lot of opportunity to stack some damage. Frostlass, Monkey Dory, some other spread things. Getting cards for a spread archetype, which we haven't really seen past, I want to say like 5 years in the game. I remember Tapu Koko with some other spread cards used to be a pretty decent archetype, at least the Cups. Yveltal could add to that and maybe give us a full-fledged archetype where we're kind of missing that glue to hold it together, that next level. Going over to one of the bigger cards in this set is going to be Okidoki X. So we saw some of these new Pokemon in our last set, Temporal Forces. I think this is a card that I'm stuck between, do I either need to have it, or is it a card that I'd like to have in my collection? And I think right now I'm gonna like, I usually go on the side of, if I can't determine, I probably need it. You can accelerate energies to your active Pokemon with its poison muscle and poison yourself. So we have a way to quickly accelerate energy if you have a solution. But its dark colorless does 130 plus 130 if this Pokemon is poisoned. We have a few ways to make our Pokemon poison. You're doing 130 plus 130 plus 10 for poison, and there's some other ways to do some extra damage. Being able to hit up to 330-ish damage, absolutely fantastic. And I think it's just like more of an aggressive Raging Bolt kind of archetype. So as we've seen, Raging Bolt wasn't necessarily the star of the show at any time, but it did see a lot of success getting those top 16 placements. If you're telling me I could fall top 16 at Worlds by playing OKX, sign me up. It might not be the world champion title that I'm fighting for, but when top 16 kind of gets you that check, that clout, that feeling of accomplishment, I'm okay with it right now. So I think Okie Dokie has a spot in an aggressive deck. Another card that we have from this trio is Monkey Door. So if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, if you have Petulant EX in play, Pokemon EX from this set, your opponent takes one fewer prize card. Does 190 damage. So I think this is a world where we have 190 damaging single prize card Pokemon-esque kind of deck. Maybe I want to play like one of, if I play a deck with Petulant, I couldn't see myself playing a full Pheasantipity EX. Saw Pheasantipity as well in our last sets. So now we have the EX version and it's Darkness type. Once during your turn, if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you may draw 3 cards. Very similar to Oricorio GX and other ability sets. Giving us an opportunity to really draw some cards after our opponent Iono does us, Roxanne's us. Sure, it's a sitting 2 prize card Pokemon, but in a single prize card deck like Box or maybe United Wings, there's opportunity to see success. I don't know if I like the attack doing 100 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Not the best, not the worst, but I think it's really there for its ability. The new Pokemon that we have in this set is Petulant EX. Arguably might be one of the best cards, if not the best card from the set. Once during your turn, you may switch one of your bench Darkness Pokemon, except any Petulant EX with active Pokemon. So, in a world where Snorlax stalls bringing up other Pokemon, you have Petulant EX that allows us, like, you could play Charizard deck and Box deck, any kind of Darkness type deck, and really get out of those kind of stall type situations. Working as kind of like a switch per turn. Your new active Pokemon is poisoned, but as you can see with something like Okie Dokie EX, or with some of these other cards that we might see in the set, being poisoned is not necessarily the downfall that it was. It might offer some good things, like in X, doing an additional 130 damage. We'll get into a few more cards once we get there, but right now I think Petulant EX ability is fantastic, and its attack for Dark, doing 60 damage for each prize card your opponent's taken 5, doing 300 damage, plus maybe poison, plus maybe some other damage modifiers. A really great game finisher if you have the Darkness energy happen. Moving into our metal Pokemon in the set, we have Genesect. Really only looking at this Pokemon for its ability. So Ace Canceller, if this Pokemon has any tools attached to it, your opponent can't play Ace Specs from their deck. They might be able to play a Vacuum, or they might play Power. Being able to stop that once per turn action is going to be something that we see. Not sure which deck is going to play Genesect. Maybe a control deck, maybe a lot of things. But we saw in the NAIC finals, Andrew Hedrick won with that game-winning Prime Catcher. I've won games due to box. Like we see in all these certain cases where ace decks open up for a huge play once during the game, cutting the play off and forcing your opponent to play around it, have the cards to play around it, just not having an Genesect. The other card that I want to note here is Copperaja. So its Gargantuan body says as long as this Pokemon's your active spot, your opponent can't play any cards from their hand. I could see a small line in a control deck to stop stadium cards from success. There's a lot of stadium cards that might be worthwhile, or cards that you want to knock into play. You have full control over those. So in the word control, or the essence of it, I could see Caparajah seeing slight success in the right setting, the same way that Alessandro Cremasoli played a 1/1 Frigiraf or Noivern EX. Caparajah might be a card that we... Haxorus is going to be the first dragon Pokemon that we're going to look at. Certainly not our last. Might be our second last, but we'll figure that out real soon. We're really looking at this in the mind of Regidrago V-Star, one of those decks that we saw on stream, copying dragon-type Pokemon from your discard pile. If your opponent's active Pokemon has any special energies attached to it, it is knocked out. Able to knock out any Pokemon regardless of their requirements, such as any Pokemon in a Lugia Star deck, handful of Pokemon that play Legacy Energy. There's a handful of special energies that might see success. Haxorus could definitely be a one-of in a Regidrago deck, maybe even taking that deck to that next level where it goes from being a 2-ish deck, tier 2.5-ish, to a tier 1.5, tier 1 deck. Only time will tell. Haxorus looks quite good. Kyurem is the next dragon Pokemon, and actually the last dragon Pokemon we got here. Its ability says Anti-Plasma. If your opponent has any card in their card pile with Cold Experiment, or there's a new Colress Tenacity set, this Pokemon's Tri-Fast attack can be used for colorless. Try Frost Attack. Sometimes it's hard to type or read and talk, and I mean, regardless, shout out to Justin Basil for all of their help with these translations and having an awesome website that so typically it would cost water, water, metal, metal, colorless. Discard all energies attached to this Pokemon. So if they have a Colress, we could discard one. Think of Lost Zone Box. This does 1/10 to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, so being able to potentially just air or drawing half your prize cards could be quite strong, knocking out a Cramorant, a Comfey, Cramorant, Comfey, Sableye. You gotta watch out for Manaphy, but maybe Kyurem would have a canceling clone, or maybe you would just try to knock out their first, put them in a clock where they have to try to find it. There's not really any colorless Pokemon that I thought that were super notable in this set, but there are quite a few notable trainer cards. So starting off with Binding Mochi. Binding Mochi is arguably the best card in this set. The attack to the poison Pokemon this card is attached to do 40 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon before applying weakness and resistance. That being said, we have a lot of really cool ways to poison Pokemon, typically dark type Pokemon, with Petrant EX, allowing some darkness type decks, or any decks that also were working around with poison, to have some opportunities. This might bring something back like Cloth. This could bring back Charizard EX to one of the best decks, and of course the new Okidoki EX deck. I'm really thinking that a lot of my testing for this set's going to be, how can I abuse Binding Mochi heading into the World Championship? That is 100% where I'm thinking. Moving on to Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia is a very interesting card, and I'm not sure if this is a card that you want one of, or if you want 4 of. You can only use this card when it's the last card in your hands. Search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Any card that allows you to search for any 2 cards can be quite impactful. So that does give us a lot of interesting options to search things out. Now, is this better than Cypher Maniac's Deciphering? Is this better in a deck that can kind of thin its hand? Honestly, we'll have to find out. Going down from 0 cards to 2 cards might be a little bit too low, which is why I've only put this as a 1 of inclusion in the right deck, but maybe a control deck might take control of a full 4 counts. As we look further into this set, we have Colress's Tenacity, the other Colress, and this would also activate that Kyurem that we have that can reduce its attack cost to 1. Search your deck for a Stadium card and an Energy card and put them into your hand. Shuffle your deck. That being said, Colress's allows you to search for an Energy card, not a basic Energy card, meaning this could be a way to search out Legacy Energy in the right deck. This could be a way to search out a double Turbo Energy. I could see Colress's Tenacity working in the right deck that it plays some special energies, maybe needs that impactful Stadium. Other than that, it's not like the crazy supporter card, but it's definitely a card that like fits the theme of Colress's scratches an itch. I don't know if that itch needs to be scratched, but it's scratched somewhere if you want to scratch it. And I think that's what I like a lot about this set is, in terms of being a deck builder, we have a lot of really cool tools that we previously didn't have before. The next card is going to be Dangerous Laser. Dangerous Laser being an A-Spec, your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned and used. Now, this might be one of the weakest A-Specs we've ever seen. However, most A-Specs are still pretty game-breaking. Saw that Confusion flip for Andrew Hedrick. That kind of worked in a crazy way. Like, he got over it, but you could confuse someone and it sticks. And you might cause them to switch. You might cause them to do something else. Plus the automatic plus 20 from burns. Maybe there's something that works with some more special conditions. It's an interesting card to say the least, and I'm not going to be upset with having it in my collection. I argue that if you're playing the game to the utmost competitive level, it's worthwhile to have all the A-Specs, because a lot of the times the metagame shifts and Dangerous Laser could actually be good in the right circumstance. And since it's a special little set, I'd actually recommend picking them up earlier than later, because Dangerous Laser is probably going to be a couple bucks to maybe $5 at most once the set releases. Dangerous Laser could be a $20 card in a year from now. And I'm not saying it is, it probably won't be, but it is one of those things where I am a little bit worried about trying to backtrack and build up my collection from there, especially since it's not a mainstream set, it's a miniature set. So keep that in mind. We have a supporter here, Janine's Secret Technique. Choose up to 2 of your dark Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a basic dark energy and attach it to that Pokemon. If you attach any energies to your active this way, it is now poison. So we really have a way to lure in some of the darkness type hype that we have with Janine's Secret Technique, working with the Binding Mochi, giving us options for darkness type decks, maybe the new Okie Dokie Poison kind of deck, and anything else that might want to be poisoned that can take colorless energy for Binding Mochi. Certainly some use cases here. Not the best energy acceleration card, but it is quite good enough where it should be able to work. We have Neutral Center. So prevent all damage done to this Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon and Pokemon V. Pokemon EX and Pokemon V. Missing a word. And you cannot get back the Neutral Center from your discard pile into your hand, or if you shuffling it into your deck. Basically, I don't know if there's another way to get it back. If maybe there's a way to summon it into play, but regardless, the way that the card is translated right now is you shouldn't really be able to get it back. It's a one and done kind of thing. I could see this in the right deck, maybe a control deck, like Snorlax can't get attacked by Pokemon EX and V, giving everything like safeguards similar to what Mimikyu has. I'm not upset about it. I think cards like this can be quite impactful, especially in the right kind of setting. Not sure how to get to this point, but maybe you waste your other opponent's stadiums with Lost Vacuum, or with other stadiums, you Neutral Center and Iono them and be like, come at me, we'll see how it goes, see if you have the resources. So I really feel like this is going to be okay in a deck that doesn't have rule box. So like an Ancient Box deck for the most part, a Snorlax deck for the most part, those would be really cool decks to add Neutral Center in. Knight Academy is another stadium that we have. Once during each player's turn, that player may put a card from their hand on top of their deck. This might work with the Cassiopeia. There might be other ways that we want to put cards on top of our deck. One thing that I'm kind of thinking of is like Kyurem VMAX. You look at the top card of your deck, search your deck for a basic energy card, or grab the basic energy card and attach it to one of your Pokemon. It seems kind of good when we look at it. Like, I think Knight Academy has some place in the right decks. But it's certainly not going to be a staple in every single deck. It's not the next Earthen Vessel. It's not the next Nest Ball. But it exists in some niche capacity. Night Stretcher. Now, this is a card that I think is actually going to be a little bit more staple, or at least it seems like it has the capabilities to do so. Put a Pokemon or basic energy card from your discard pile into your hand. So it kind of is like a Super Rod, except you only get one, but instead of going to the deck, you only get into your hand. Sometimes you need that game-winning energy. So half an energy retrieval, or sometimes you need a way to get back a Pokemon. It's not a basic Pokemon, or excluding Pokemon EX, you can get whatever you need. So something like a Lost Zone box might play a Night Stretcher, just to get back that Key Iron Hands EX, or maybe you need an energy that you could use for Radiant Greninja immediately. There's a lot of really cool things that I think you could do with this card, and it's a card that I definitely want to have in my Pokemon. We're getting pretty close towards the end. Only a few cards left, so if you're trying to figure out where we're at, there's only a few cards left. Pokevital A is our third A spec that we have in the set. I think it's third and final A spec. Heal 150 damage from one of your Pokemon, and like the neutral center, can't get it back into your hand when it's in your discard pile, or get it shuffled into your deck when it's in your discard pile. Not sure why they have that on Pokevital A to heal 150. However, I look at cards like this where it's like Scoop Up Cyclone is the closest A spec that I can think of, because you can take a heavily damaged Charizard EX, put it back to your hand, and that can be quite impactful. But then you get the whole stage 2 pieces and you're not powered up and you're not ready to go. Pokevital A might work in a one-time heal go. We are surviving this. It's a little bit more than a Hero's Cape that typically is getting 2-shot anyways. Pokevital gives us that opportunity to just go attack again. And maybe our opponent doesn't have a way to attack again, or maybe we Iono. There's a few things that Pokevital A could be good. Again, I think this is a relatively low-cost A spec, and it's worthwhile to probably pick up just to have in your Power Hourglass, which is really difficult to say together. I think that's one of those things where I'm like, okay, interesting. So at the end of your turn, the Pokemon this card is attached to in the active spot, this is a Pokemon tool, by the way, you may attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to that Pokemon, giving yourself an opportunity to maybe build up a big Pokemon that you otherwise weren't having built up on. So that's the way that I look at it, where there could be some success with Power Hourglass. I don't know which kind of Pokemon we're powering up, but maybe in some deck that doesn't do a lot of damage, or maybe some way that we could Thornton into a really cool Pokemon. I want to think of like the Igglybuff, Togepi, is it Cleffa? It's like the triple baby tag team Pokemon from a few years back. Like they had a win condition about just having being all powered up. I'm not sure if that was ever reached, but Power Hourglass could certainly be a card for that. Maybe there's an opportunity to see some success with this card. Maybe there's not, but it's interesting enough where I'm not going to be like, there's no use cases that potentially are happening now or in the next 2 years. Xerosic's Plan, your opponent discards their hands, and this is the last card, until they have 3 cards in their hands. So your opponent who just played Research passed their turn, you could discard 4 of those cards, and they're down to 3. Now, I think there's a cool thing that you could do, because obviously your opponent's going to take the best cards there. You could play something like an Unfair Stamp afterwards to disrupt your opponent's hand even further, or you could find a card that discards cards from your hand further as an attack, and maybe you play Grabber on top of the Xerosic's Plan to take a Pokemon that you think they might have there. Or there's a whole bunch of use cases with Xerosix. So you either want to use Xerosix, then their hand down of all their cards, and then shuffle it away. I honestly see this being in Control, or being in a deck that can search it out like a Pidgeot EX kind of build, and seeing how it actually plays out from there. Really cool card in general. And I think there's also really cool alt art. There's a lot of really alt arts when it comes to this set as well. That's something that I'd kind of consider when it comes down to it. Like, I think there's some really cool arts. The set seems really cool across the board. Might not be the most impactful set of all time. However, there's certainly some impactful cards. And I think in terms of either collecting or preparing for the World Championships, or preparing for our 2024 to 2025 season, which should be starting July 1st, I think this set's going to have a lot of interesting things going on for it. So let me close things out by showing you the buy list that I have updated, and we'll kind of go from there. Feel free to take an opportunity to screenshot this, use it however you like. Credits given Zach Lesage and or the Shuffle Squad. These are really the cards that I'd be picking down to. Maybe something like the Cassiopeia, but right now I think that when it comes to the cards, I'm not looking for much more than the must-haves. The playables are cool. Like, I think Dartrix are going to cost me, like, I'll pick up a Tapu Buu. I'll pick up some of the cards that I'm willing to kind of throw around there. I like picking up all the A specs. Like, we get the Dangerous Lace, the Pokevital, Center. Like, I'm picking up all 3. I want to have an A spec for every single possible. But hopefully this allows you to kind of cut down on searching through the set, trying to understand what's the best, and taking this list to the cards if I want to have Pokemon for the next 2 years. What does Zach see potentially being? I don't think Dartrix might be the best card right away. Tapu Bulu might see success right away. I'm looking into the future of these cards and how they might success over a year of Pokemon, 2 years of being in format. They're cards that, based off playing Pokemon for 20 years, might see success at some point. And if worse comes to worse, don't pick them up if you don't want to. This is only a minor suggestion, but our sponsor at Kayfabe Cards should have all these cards available when Shrouded Fable pre-orders go. So stay tuned for that. Let me close things. And that's what we got going on for our video today, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this, learning more about Shrouded Fables, and learning the cards to pick it up. And as I'm saying Shrouded Fables, it's actually Shrouded Fable, no S. So I have a bad habit of adding S onto a lot of sets, but regardless, I hope that you enjoyed watching this and learning more. I do plan on hosting some Metafy classes in Shrouded Fable format to help everyone prepare for Worlds next season, all that great stuff. So be sure to stay tuned for those. I do have an Ancient Box course going on later on this week, or you could always hit me up for some individual coaching as well. I do have my new Discord server that I talked about, so be sure to check that out. Otherwise, keep on watching the Shuffle Squad's content, learning more about the game, and if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe. I'll catch up with all y'all later. Peace out, and have a great one. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.